All right, everybody. For so here's what you should know by now. And again, eat the apple in little bites. Don't wait until the last minute to try to learn all these muscles, and it's going to get crazy. And remember, the circles are there as a teaching tool that might work for some. It may not work for all, and that's okay. We just need to find what works best for you to be able to identify all the different members of certain teams. For the trunk, flexion pullers, extension pullers, right lateral pullers, left lateral pullers, right transverse, left transverse. How you do it, maybe you could just visualize it, see it. That's awesome. Maybe you do lists. That's awesome. I'm giving you different options to find what works for you. Okay. All right. So how do we know what muscles are being stretched at the trunk? We're going to identify the position of the trunk. Where is it positioned relative to anatomical? And then we understand that muscles that pull in the same direction as the position aren't going to be stretched. They're going to be slack. The muscles that pull in the other direction are going to be lengthened. So her trunk is extended, so she'd be stretching trunk flexors. And then who are the trunk flexors? The rectus, the externals, the internals, and however you learn it. Does that make sense? She's extended, so therefore she's stretching flexion pullers. We haven't gotten to hips yet, so this isn't a hip conversation. All right, let's go to this one. She's holding this position against tension. So let's identify the muscles at her trunk that would be working isometrically to maintain this position. You might be a biomechanical savant. That's awesome. I'm not. I got step by step. What's the machine trying to do to her? Therefore, what muscles do we need to influence her motion, external versus internal? I guys, think about it. If you've ever done, you work in a clinic and you're doing manual muscle tests, it's the same concept. If you're trying to identify the strength of a muscle, your external force is going to be in the opposite direction of the muscle's pull. That's a majority of what you do. There are rare exceptions that we're going to get to when we get into the peripheries. It's just rare that you actually go faster than gravity here or here. But when we get into the hip, we'll talk about, hey, if I'm a sprinter and I'm trying to extend and gravity can only extend me so fast, I might want to use my extensors to go with gravity to make fast extension happen. We'll get into those examples. But rarely do you actually use muscles in the same direction to pull unless you're trying to like duck or something fast. All right, the machine is trying to twist her trunk to her left. She's going to need muscles that are trying to twist her trunk to the right. Who are those muscles? Left external, right internal, right rectus. See how this works? You identified the agonist based off of pull. You saw who you need to pull internally because you saw what's trying to move you external. Once we get into contractions, bring it back to the agonist pull because at least it's in the same language. In other words, she needs right transverse pullers. You already told me who those muscles are. If you see right transverse rotation, right transverse pullers do right transverse rotation through concentrics. Right transverse pullers are going to allow left transverse through eccentrics. But if you go based off of the muscles, left external, it can get cumbersome because those individual muscles, majority of them don't have pull in their name. So that's why we emphasize function so much. If we know how the muscles are pulling, then we can make sense of the contractions and the motions. There's a method to the madness. Let's keep going. All right, let's start at the top. Isometric. He's holding this position. Some of you remember this question from 310. Guys, do a thought experiment. You already in your 20s, you have a lot of life data. Campbell, what's a thought experiment? If he turned off all the muscles of his trunk, what would happen to his trunk? Don't answer it. Give it some thought. If he, now obviously his elbows on the ground, his feet are on the ground. But if he turned off all the muscles of his trunk, what motion would happen to his trunk? That's what you got to ask yourself. And once you establish that, what motion of the external force is trying to do to his trunk, then the muscle agonist views itself. Who do I need because I understand why I need them? So if that's the thought, talk to your neighbors, or do what I do, talk to the different voices in your head. And then we'll go from there. Take about 30 seconds or so. And also, I know this isn't, y'all are shy, I get it, but I like you guys a lot. Feel free to do it. Feel free to, oh, I feel this certain group engaging, holding me there. That's why they call it a plank, because you need a rigid link, right? So feel free for the sake, but think of it as a lab. Think of this as kind of a lab class. So feel free to do it if it helps you. Look, if you do it, I promise I won't look. That's what I do with my kids sometimes. They're getting too old and joke that way. Just the top. We'll do motion after, but let's establish isometry. Yeah, just the top. Just what muscles is he using to hold that position? Think about it like this. Elevator going up and down can be distracting with the movement. Let's make the elevator stop. Establish how that cable's pulling, and then give it the context of motion. So we're just going to start with the isometric at the top, and then we'll get motion. Let me ask you this. Do we need sagittal pulling muscles, frontal pulling muscles, or transverse pulling muscles? Frontal. There you go. Really good chance. So all I'm asking you to do right now is identify the agonist at the trunk, the group, and then who are the muscles in the group? Just holding that position. Okay, let's do the thought experiment because I want to really try to get as many examples as I can. Sometimes it's a conflict of interest. I want to give you time, but also want to try to give you as many practice. All right, holding this position. If I relax all my muscles, my trunk will bend. My right shoulder got closer to my right hip. My trunk is going to bend to my right. Does that make sense? Grounding gravity is trying to bend my trunk to the right. So by process of elimination, I don't need muscles that are trying to bend my trunk to the right. In fact, if I was here and I turned on those, I would literally pull my arm out from the ground and plop down. I need left laterals. Does that make sense? I see that I need left laterals because grounding gravity is trying to bend me to the right. Who are the left laterals? That's where you learn it, what works best for you. I'm not telling you you're going to use the circles. It's just the circles for me are efficient because, well, it's everything on the left side of that sits in the left side of class. Left rectus, left external, left internal, left erector. It works for me, but I'm not saying it has to work for you. It's okay. Any questions about that? Now we're going to give it motion, but are there any questions about how we figured out that I'm using the muscles on the left side of my belly button? Good there? Okay, now let's move the elevator. Let's give it context. I go from top to bottom, and then I go from bottom to top. Let me ask you this from 310. Are we going to use different muscles as we go top to bottom than bottom to top? No, that's like saying I'm working bicep, bringing the curl up, and tricep, lowering it down. No, it's the same muscles. Same external forces, same agonist. The different motions isn't because of different muscles. The different motions is because of different contractions. That's unlocking biomechanics, practical biomechanics. That I don't have bicep, tricep. It's still bicep, but the bicep is going to influence motion through different contractions. Concentric, going to make me flex. Eccentric, going to allow me to extend. So let's figure that out. I want you to tell me the contraction. So what you should be able to answer on the test, the agonist. who are the muscles in the agonist on the test, I might just say left external or right external. I might say left external to concentric, right external to concentric, left external to eccentric, right external to eccentric. That's why you got to know them all, because I might pick and choose. On the test, I might say which of the following are trunk flexors. It's all different ways to ask it. All right. Part of the little piece of me that I'm trying to pass on to you guys is my process. It's the only process outside of who I've taught because it makes sense. It's consistent. You don't have to guess. Top to bottom. Guys, maybe some of you, or not for this example, maybe some of you got it right away. I have to do the process to make sure I get it right. I'm using my left laterals. Well, how do I know? Because I have to. Because grounding gravity is trying to bend me the other way, right? Grounding gravity is trying to bend me to the right. I need muscles that are trying to bend me to the left. What motion do I see from top to bottom? What was the motion of the trunk? Right lateral. The motion. Motion is motion. Traveling east doesn't matter if you're riding on a train, a bus, a car, or you're running. Going east is going east. So if I know that I'm using left lateral benders, and I also know that my motion was right lateral bending, there's only one way that can happen. Left lateral benders are going to allow right lateral bending through eccentrics. Good. There's no guesswork. There's no guesswork. And the reason there's no guesswork is because it's physics. Newton's been around for a long time. Bottom to top. You might be able to be, oh, I just know that's concentric. Awesome. But let's still put it into the verbiage so that we can be consistent with our process. Nothing's trying to make me go up. In fact, gravity's trying to keep me down. Gravity's trying to keep me bent to the right. So my left lateral benders are going to make me left lateral bend through concentrics, through concentric contraction. A plus B is equal to C. Agonist influence joint motion through contractions. We have to have all three variables. We cannot just say, now it's true, muscles do influence motion. But the problem by not including contraction, that's when people say, oh, extension must be tricep, because they don't take into the nuance of the context. Well, no, bicep can do extension when it's working eccentrically. That's why we always have to include the context of contraction. Any questions before we go on to the next one? Is this getting better? You get more confident? Hopefully so. All right, guys. Before you get on the trunk, cervical, do I need flexors or extensors? Good. Gravity's, well, if she relaxed all of her muscles, what would happen to her? It would flex, right? Yeah. So we don't need muscles that are moving the same way. So gravity's trying to flex her, she needs extension pulls. It's good practice because there's all solved. Now let's go to the trunk. We do not assume just because gravity is trying to flex her neck doesn't mean it's also trying to flex her trunk. We have to play the same game. What is grounding gravity? What are the forces trying to do to my plan? Right? Give it some thought. And then once you identify the agonist, to me, that's the easiest part. Identifying the agonist, guys, is the hardest thing to do. That's why I introduced it to you in 310. Once you have the agonistic group, to me, the easiest part, well, who's in that band? Who's in that team? Who's on the pellet? Who's on the Saints? It's just learning. And what's great about human anatomy is there's no free agency. You know what? I'm tired of being a flexor. I'm going to transfer and be an extensor. Once you learn who's on the teams, they're there forever. I'm not disrespecting the knees. We'll get there when we do the knees. I'm not disrespecting the hip. We'll do that when we get to the hip. It's just I'm respecting the trunk. Because that's where we're on. Trunk flexors or trunk extensors? Good. So who do I need? Absolutely. And then who are those? The ones that sit in the front of the trunk clad. And think about it. Doesn't it make sense from our side plank too? I needed the muscles on the bottom, right? I still need the muscles on the bottom. I would still need the muscles on the bottom because they're preventing me from caving in. If she lowered herself down, like to stretch, the flexors would allow the extension through eccentrics. And if she bridged herself back up, the flexors would do the flexion through concentrics. It's ground and gravity. So think of it like this. So we know that the ground is pushing on her feet and her elbows, right? True? Okay. And we also know gravity is trying to pull down the middle part. So think of it like, I'm going to give you a couple of examples, but you know what silly putty is, right? The clay, it's like clay. If I took the silly putty and stretched it, wouldn't it sag in the middle? Okay. So gravity is trying to pull this down, but she's preventing everything from going down with her elbows and her feet. So gravity is trying to sag her silly putty, which is extension, and so therefore she needs flexors. It's like because of my hands, gravity's trying to do this. The neck doesn't have another piece pushing up on it. So that's why gravity's trying to flex the neck. But if her head was on a table, right, she'd be using her flexors. So it's very similar. It's like her trunk is on a table, and that's why she needs the flexors. You're welcome. That's a really good question. Ground and gravity. All right, guys, let's have some fun with this. Isometric. And then what I would like for you to do is say, I'm not going to give you the motion. I want you to identify the motion. But if he starts in the position that's in the photo and he brings the plate back up, I would love for you to be able to tell me specific muscles, did specific motions, did specific contractions, and not say core. What's the core? Correct. The picture is just a reference, right? So this is my start, and so you're establishing external forces and the agonist, the muscles beneath, and then from here he brings it up. And I don't want you to keep going. I don't want you to go across. Just what would be responsible for bringing the plate up? I want specific muscles for that specific motion with a specific contraction. And guys, I apologize. The lighting in this projector is so bad. So that's why I always try to pull it up on the side screen, so it's so much better. What I'll do is I'll come bring the cart a la carte to the side screen. Maybe you could get a better visual of the exercise. Unfortunately, we have to move if we're gonna get to all the examples I want us to practice today. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how I process it. I've been doing this for a long time. If anybody ever came to me, let's say they're doing a project or they're doing something and they need to know specific muscles, I don't have that stuff memorized. Well, let's figure it out. Gravity's trying to twist this trunk to the right because the plate is on the right side. So I need muscles that are trying to twist my trunk to the left. We call those left transverse trunk rotators because of how they pull. Who are those muscles? Right external, left internal, left director. If I bring it back up, the motion I'm going to have is left transverse trunk rotation. So the left transverse trunk rotators are going to do that left transverse trunk rotation through concentrics. Now, let's play a hypothetical. We have to be able to visualize this stuff sometimes. Let's play a hypothetical. He brings the plate up and then he keeps going left transverse. In other words, he does a full range of motion of left transverse. Our Pavlovian brains, which we all have it, guys, our brains are trained to pattern recognize, and sometimes that can be good. Sometimes it can be bad. Playing basketball, I was the only left-hander. I went by a lot of people until they figured out, oh, he's left-handed. In other words, you're used to someone gets the ball, they're going to go this way, they're going to go this way, they're going to go this way. Then all of a sudden, someone goes the other way. That's what I'm talking about. Here on this side, gravity's trying to twist me to the right. But once I break midway, gravity's now trying to twist me to my left. I no longer need muscles that are pulling to the left. As soon as I tilt it over to the left side, I need muscles that are pulling back to the right. So this exercise is working left transverse muscles when I'm on this side, and it's working right transverse muscles when I'm on the other side. Because gravity is trying to do two different twists to me when I'm on the right side versus on the left side. So this is what it's going to be. Left transverse, concentric, right transverse, eccentric. Right transverse, concentric, left transverse, eccentric. Left transverse, concentric, right transverse, eccentric. Follow me? If I had this pole and I tilted it here and I didn't want it to fall down, I'd be pulling the pole to my left, your right. But if the pole tilted on the other side, I'd want to pull it to my right, your left. Absolutely. It's all good. We just had to fine tune a little bit. But that's all we're saying. When I'm here, I need muscles that are pulling away from the plate, wanting to go this way. But as soon as I go on the other side, now I need ropes that are trying to pull the plate the other way. So the trick is that you have a full range of motion. Well, wait, what do you mean? I'm still doing left transverse. Yeah, but the external force is trying to twist you in two different ways depending on where you are relative to gravity. When I'm twisted to the right, it's trying to twist me to the right. And when I'm on the left, it's trying to twist me to the left. So I wouldn't need the same muscles. Think of it like this. If I use the left transverse the whole time, it would hurt my back because it'd be yank it down. It hurts your back. Does that make sense? So if we wanted to speak it in terms of specific muscles, on this side, right external, left internal, left erector. And as soon as I do this, left external, right internal, right erector. Same muscles, different contraction. As soon as I get to the other side, right external, left internal, left erector. On with this one. Start isometric. Oh, yeah, well, what a great question. So you're 100% correct. Gravity's trying to extend you, so you would need your flexors. But that would all be isometric to maintain that position, right? Right? So it's not disrespecting the fact that I need flexors to bridge my trunk to make sure I don't extend. It's just in terms of the motion we were looking at, the muscles responsible for those specific motions. If he was doing like this, then we would have like a flexors concentric, flexors eccentric conversation. But the fact that he was maintaining that position while he twisted, we were just having a twister conversation for what would be responsible for the twisting. But 100% he would need flexors isometrically to maintain that position while he twisted. And the application of that, I wouldn't ask this on the test, but sometimes it's cool to learn things that could be applicable. He would be working more flexor rotators than extensor rotators. Does that make sense? Like, in other words, the emphasis would be on externals and internals and not erector, because those externals and internals have multiple functions, this and this. So I'm so glad you brought that up. So what we're doing here is we're having a twisting conversation still. So of course there would be some extensors working to maintain that position, but I specifically want to see what muscles are maintaining that twisted position, the rotated position in this question. And again, we can apply the same thing that, oh, wow, I have this specific muscle that's really working twice. It's working sagittally and it's working transversely. I think someone at the beginning of class said, well, will we be able to learn kind of how to isolate or work certain? Absolutely. If you give a muscle multiple jobs in multiple planes, it's going to be working more. Does everybody understand the scenario? Plate is here. Cool. Good minutes. All right, you guys, how is gravity trying to twist his trunk? So transverse. Yes, gravity is also trying to flex him, but how would gravity specifically be trying to rotate him? Right transverse. Good. So we need left transverse pullers. Who are those muscles? Right external, left internal, left erector spinae. Now, again, the context, the fact that I need extensors and left transverse, I'm really working the left erector spinae double time right here. It's kind of good to know, right? That erector spinae is influencing motion in two different planes. Now, what would happen if the person started to lower the plate down? Outstanding. Same muscles, but the ones that are pulling to the left allow motion to the right through the eccentrics. Good. It's simple, huh? It's the process. The process is simple. Think of it like this. Think of it if we were if we were on a cable machine and the cable machine was pulling here, right? And I was twisted this way, the cable machine's trying to pull me here. Wouldn't I need muscles pulling this way to let me go back here? It's the same concept, just with a plate. So the plate is trying to do this. I need muscles that are pulling here, and the same muscles are going to let me spin to the right or make me spin to the left. And playing the same game we did on the last one. Can everybody see if he did a full range of motion? I would need left transverse. Let me see if I could get a better picture. I would need left transverse here, left transverse eccentric. Well, now nothing's trying to make me spin. Right transverse concentric, right transverse eccentric, left transverse concentric, left transverse eccentric, right transverse con, right transverse E. But again, if all I did was do the specific muscles, that'd be really weird. Right external con, right external E, left erector spinae con, left erector spinae E, right erector spinae con, right erector spinae E. You can, but it's just so much easier to bring it back to the group and then just try to learn how you learn who's in the group. So that way you could always interchange the pieces as you need. We're ready for a hard one? Okay. They have one of these in at Bourgeois. Okay, but what I want to start with, because I think we have enough time, I think it will help us. I want all of you guys, just humor me. If you are sitting in one of the metal pieces to your left, what I want you to do is, nothing's trying to make your seat twist. Muscles can only pull. That means if you're going to make you twist, you have to do it concentric. Does that make sense? There's no resistance. Okay? If the pole is to your left, the only way you can twist is right transverse pelvic. If the pole is to your right, I want you to twist left transverse pelvic. Now the key thing is, I want you to keep your sternum, I want you to the seat, keep your sternum forward so that way you can see what hip you're now looking at as you twist. And I want to see if you can tell me. There's going to be two different answers depending on how you twist. But I want to see if you can tell me which muscles would be responsible for making you twist your trunk when you're seated. Again, if the pole is to your left, you're going to right transverse pelvic. If the pole is to your right, your really only option is to go left transverse pelvic. See what I'm asking? And I want to see if you can tell me which specific muscles in your trunk were responsible in making. Yes, the pelvic girdle spinning, but your trunk has to be spinning too. And so that's why we bring it back to the muscles. Identify how your trunk rotated, and that'll help you to see which muscles you had to use to rotate your trunk. Does anybody work in a clinic? Anybody? Has this been helpful? Useful? Hopefully. better if you're a personal trainer, if you're a coach. All of the things. You know, always, it's so hard. I have 3 months with you. And I have to introduce you to some biomechanical terms, but not everybody's going to be applying biomechanical terms. But I think it's fair to say we're all going to be applying muscles, motion, and contraction. All right, you guys. So here's what I'm asking. You know, obliques run like Chewbacca's belt, right? So my left external and my right internal can work to bring my left shoulder closer to my right hip, and my right external and my left internal can work to bring my right shoulder closer to my left hip. But what happens when the shoulders stay fixed and I bring my left hip to visit my right shoulder? It's the same muscles. So if the bar was to your left and you did right transverse pelvic, that meant you made left transverse trunk. And left transverse trunk is trying to bring right ribs closer to left hip. It's just you're bringing the left hip to go visit the right ribs, but it's the same muscles, it's the same wall. So if you did right transverse pelvic because of left transverse trunk, that's right external, left internal, left right. If you were on the other side and bar was on your right side and you did left transverse pelvic, you made right transverse trunk. So you need left external, right internal, right direction. Make sense? Make sense? If the bar was on your right side and you had no choice but to spin your pelvis to the left, that meant you made your trunk spin to the right. And instead of bringing left ribs to right hip, you brought right hip to visit left ribs. It was the same muscles, left external, right internal. Cool? You see how we're beyond the tumor?
So, what about like the city of town?
Well, for this, you had to have concentric to make it happen because there was no external force trying to make you spin, right? So the only way to make it, that's like saying, if there's nothing trying to make the chair slide across the room, the only way I can get the chair to move is if I shorten it. You've got to shorten to make things move. You can't push you when there's no external force. It would be concentric to make you spin. Now, once we get into the appendages, it's going to be easier to see. Concentric and eccentric is going to be great at putting on the brake, and then we'll get into plyometric stuff more when we get into the appendages because we use it a lot more. But yeah, if there's no external force, you got to make the motion happen with concentric. All right, guys, last one for the day. Here we go. Clues. So in this exercise, it kind of works like your chair, but now there is an external force trying to spin you, right? The machine is trying to spin you. Keep in mind, the machine is not trying to rotate your hips. The machine is trying to rotate your pelvis, thus trying to rotate your trunk. Does that make sense? Also, clues. There's clues in the machine. I know when I get into the machine, before I start moving, all the plates are touching. This is his start position. He's going to make this motion happen because the plates separate. Does that make sense? So I know that he's starting here, and then he's making it to here, and then he's going to let it go back there. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. This is tough, but we can figure it out. Even though the pelvic girdle is rotating, bring it back to the trunk. Bring it back to the trunk. Let's give everybody a hint. In the start position, how is his trunk rotated? It's not an anatomical. How is his trunk? Good. His trunk is rotated to the left when he got started. His sternum's looking more at his left hip. Does that make sense? And then he's going to go from here. He's going to make this happen. How do I know? Those plates got further away, just like any other machine. When you make it happen and the plates move up, because now gravity's trying to bring the plates down. So he's going to go from here to there, and then here back to there. That's going to be a whole repetition. Just like if you got on the curl machine, you start here, you make it do this, and then you let it do that. Talk to me about some obliques. Talk to me about what muscles. So if, let's say you are a fitness person. And again, I'm just trying to make you better. I'm trying to make us to see, because there's going to be some exercises where there's certain things you may not want to do. It's contraindicated. So most people, it's not their fault. They were not trained to be able to have a process to figure this out. Oh, we'll work in the core, we'll work in the transverse muscle, but which ones? We should be able to say which external, which internal. That's why we're here. So let's see if we can figure that out. I would love for you to tell me which specific external, which specific internal. I'll say that loud. I had a chance, good chance to give this some thought. This is no different. The hips are positioned different, but this is the same concept as the windshield washer. It's just instead of gravity, you have a machine, but it's the same concept. Do me a solid. I can't force you to, but good gosh, it's great for learning. Once you have an answer, share it with someone in your general area. See if you got the same thing. See if you got something different. And if you got something different, awesome. That gives you a chance to discuss it. Why did you get this? Oh, I see. Again, I'm not forcing you, but it does help. It really does. if you can do this one, looking pretty good on the test, okay? This is probably the hardest. The pelvic girdle rotations when your trunk is fixed is trunk rotations. I mean, it just looks different. All right. So if we can see this one, we are in really good shape. Okay. Oh, gotcha. So it doesn't, both, because what we want to do is we want to like a whole repetition, right? So we're going to start on the right, only because that's where he would have started, right? Because he would start where however, on the test, I might say, hey, for this particular phase, from left to right, it's just if we start on the left, you have to know that he literally didn't start the exercise on the left. If that's no different than if I was doing a curl, I might say from here to there. Flexors, eccentric, but you know, he didn't start the exercise there, I didn't start right there. Yeah, correct. All right, guys. So it may not seem like it, but we're going to do a callback to the chair exercise where there was no external force trying to make it twist, so you had to make it twist, right? When you start and the plates are touching, the machine isn't trying to make you do anything. So you got it? Yeah, so that initial movement has to be concentric. We're still going to prove it, but just to give you a heads up that if the external force isn't trying to make you do anything, you have to make it do something. Now, I start twisted to my left. My trunk is left transverse, trunk rotated. My finish position is anatomical. So to go from twisted to my left to anatomical, regardless of if I move the trunk or if I move the pelvis, that motion has to be right transverse trunk rotation. Now, as soon as I start right transverse trunk rotating, now the machine is trying to bring me back to the left, right? So maybe that's a way you could kind of see, the machine is trying to bring me back here. The machine is trying to twist me to my left. I don't need muscles that are trying to twist me to the left. I need muscles that are trying to twist me to the right. I need right transverse trunk rotators. Who are those muscles? Left external, right internal, right erector spinae. All day and on holidays and weekends. Concentric to make it happen, eccentric to let it happen. Yeah, I'm good with it.